We are back with page 2 of our study guide. Hopefully you managed to get through all of page 1. If not, there are the videos still on Google Classroom. So hopefully you can check those out and be prepared for your final exam. So here we go with page 2. So page 2 is going to look at kind of more multiple choice questions as well as kind of filling in some short answer stuff there towards the end. It's going to look again at all of our units that we have gone over so far. Question 1 is kind of looking at Unit 1 as we kind of looked at kind of geography things and basic terms and stuff like that as we went through it. So it was asking the question of which one would be the best description of the theme human environment and interaction. Remember, that's how humans interact with the environment, and what do they do in order to be able to live their life in the environment that they're in. So like for Inuit people in the northern parts of Canada, they build igloos and stuff like that. All of that kind of stuff. If you have a river, you build a bridge. So when we look at our answers that we have here, we have Christianity spreading from the Middle East throughout the planet. That would be movement. McDonald's going from small local business in California to a global company. That would also be movement. The Washington Monument is located in Washington, D.C., next to the U.S. Capitol building. That's location. So it's the last one. It's that Golden Gate Bridge stretching across San Francisco Bay, connecting Oakland to San Francisco. So here it is. They have made some type of an adjustment or some type of an interaction with the environment in order to ease human life. 2 and 3 are looking at the directions. So the first one's looking for, it just says what direction would you travel to go from Texas to New York? So we have Texas down here in the southern part of the United States, and then we move up to New York, which is up here in the northeast part of the United States. So our answer is letter D. 3, we're looking at what cardinal direction. So remember that cardinal direction is the basic 4. It's north, south, east, and west. So if I'm looking for ones that are in between, it would be the intermediate directions. So in this case, I'm looking at just the cardinal directions, and it wants to know if I would travel from Washington. So Washington's up here, even though on the map it's wrong. Really should fix that. And what direction would they go if they're moving south or moving to California? They're going south. 4, again, we're looking at relative location. So we're using the map again. And it wants to know what is the relative location of Florida, Florida being down here in the southeast part of the United States. So it's not around Maine, it's not west of California, it's not east of North Carolina, but it is south of Georgia. So letter C. Number 5, which of the following would be part of culture? Remember that culture encompasses almost everything. It's letter D, all of the above. Number 6, which religion dominates the Russian culture? That is Eastern Orthodoxy, as I forgot to prep that and underline it in advance. My bad. So it is in Eastern Orthodoxy, letter D. Number 7, most of the leaders of Russia would have their leadership style described as authoritarian. Remember, they're very heavy-handed. They have almost always had a government that was a single individual controlling every aspect of life without really a whole lot of input from the people. Up until the Tsar, even into the Tsar, it was done by hereditary. And then after the Tsar, you have communism, not really a whole lot of democracy or people input in that. And now you have Vladimir Putin. Again, not a whole lot of input there, even though they claim to be a democracy. They're not. Number 8, which is a man-made water that connects the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea together. So we're into North Africa, and that's the Suez Canal. Number 9, the loss of farmable land because it dries out is called desertification. So it's not climate change, that's just looking at overall stuff. Biodiversity looks at the stuff that we have there, and then agriculture. Again, you would think that it might be with agriculture, but agriculture is farming. It's not the loss of that land. That land is desertification. It's that losing that land to desert. 10, who was the wealthiest man to ever live? That's Mansa Musa. Remember that he had like $400 billion or something like this in modern day money. So, all of the other ones that are there, they would not, even today, would not reach Mansa Musa's wealth. 11, what is causing the population of sub-Saharan Africa to increase rapidly? So that's the part that you have to really pay attention to, is increase. All right? Disease, not going to increase population. Migration out, not going to increase population as people leaving. War, definitely not. So it's D, improved medicine. 12, what dance originated in Western Asia? Not funk. Belly dancing, letter B. 13. What major resource contributed to the wealth of Western Asia? Oil. All about oil. When you remember that Western Asia is the Middle East, it's all about oil. Number 14. List our 5 pillars of Islam. Remember that 4 of these 5 can be attributed to almost every religion in some manner or form. All right, remember our declaration of faith. It's like baptism within the Christian faith. You pray 5 times, giving to the poor or charity, fasting during Ramadan, and then the only one that's really kind of different or unique to Islam is that travel to Mecca, or that pilgrimage to Mecca. 15, so we're going to look at kind of our essay questions. So 15 is asking, what impact did Berlin Conference have on Africa? So it divided up Africa among the European countries. Each one got their own little piece because they were already there with colonization. This just kind of finalized it and made it official because the German chancellor was concerned about it starting a European war fighting over colonies in Africa. So they divided everything up and made it so that it was supposedly even for the Europeans. Well, unfortunately, they didn't include any Africans in this process, so they were completely cut out. In the next, 100 years or so, as colonization continues, all the Europeans are doing is just taking all the resources. So it creates a situation where no money and no resources are left in Africa. And when the Europeans leave Africa following World War II, it creates a situation that now you have tribes that didn't like each other before, but now they're trapped in the same country because the Europeans set up the borders. So there's ethnic violence. There's a lack of infrastructure because, again, all the money and resources were taken from the continent and sent back to Africa. And it creates a very bitter feeling of distrust within the African continent about Europeans as a whole. So it has created 3 things that are really not helpful in the global scheme of things. 16. What were some of the political, economic, and social repercussions of the Trans-Siberian Railroad being built? So remember the Trans-Siberian Railroad, the railroad that connects Russia from one spot to the other, from Vladivostok on the eastern coast of the Pacific Ocean, all the way across Siberia, across the Ural Mountains, across most of the plains of Eastern Europe, and up to Moscow. So it really controls a lot of the country, right? And what it allowed them to do was, again, to travel in a way that had not been done before. You could move from one side of the country without it taking months. Instead, it was able to take a matter of days. So it opens up Russian culture, which is part of the reason why they built it in the first place. The Asian part was not really Russian enough for the Russian Tsar, so he wanted some way to be able to export Russian culture to that part of the country. So that's what they did. They built the Trans-Siberian Railroad. It also had a sub-effect of being able to allow resources to be moved in and out of Siberia much easier, much faster than it had ever been done before. So it improved not just culture of Russia, but also their economics. They were able to export a lot of resources. And the third thing it allowed to do was it allowed the Tsar to rule over the whole country. Again, it's much easier to be able to rule over a country if it takes you a matter of days to move troops across the country than if it takes you a matter of months. 17. You're comparing and contrasting political and physical maps. It's pretty easy. A physical map is what you can see. A political map is going to show you borders and cities. That's basically it for that one. 18 and 19 and 20. 18. What are the advantages and disadvantages of both maps and globes? Remember that a map is going to show you greater detail of an area because, well, you can zoom in and you can get as detailed as you want on a map, or you can have a very big, broad scope. But either way, you're still limited to the size of the paper or the organism that you're working with. A globe is going to be a more accurate representation of what the Earth actually looks like because it's just a scaled model. If you scale the model down, whatever you're scaling it down is what you'll scale all the continents down to. So it's a more accurate representation, but it's going to have less detail in it as far as what you would see. 19. What has the production and exportation of oil brought to the region of Western Asia? So I think in your paper it doesn't say of Western Asia. I've added that since. But the biggest thing is it brought money. It's all about the money. It brought in massive amounts of money, which has allowed the region to build the infrastructure that they need. The only thing that's really held them back is the political instability that has come from the fact that the Arab countries are still, well, fighting amongst themselves. And question 20 looks at everything that we've kind of talked about, all the regions we have talked about as far as environmental challenges that we have studied, global climate change, the loss of biodiversity, and the increase in desertification happening throughout the planet are all three things that eventually every region on the planet is already seeing, and we will, as a human race, will have to figure out how to come up with a solution. All right, if you had any questions or you are missing questions or anything that you want to have answered and is not already answered by the end of this video, you need to email me. You need to ask. Otherwise, I can't help. So if you haven't turned anything in and you're still missing stuff, remember that Thursday's it. I'm not taking anything on Friday. Friday, you're SOL. I will take anything up until Thursday. All right? Again, if you have questions, shoot me an email. I will answer them. Otherwise, have a great day, and I'll see you on your day of your final.